Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Eat, Pray, Love on Voice of the Cape 91.3 FM. If you've just tuned in, it's Tasleema Allie with you all the way until 6 p.m. on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. And as promised, we are joined by And She Thrived. We have Sister Sumaya Jiva with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Sumaya.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me today, Tasleema.
I'm excited to have you back, Sister Sumaya. I think many enjoyed our interview a few weeks back, and I was looking forward to starting the series, this much needed series. But just before we get into our guest that's joining you today, which is Sister Ayesha Hassim, just a little bit of an introduction to what And She Thrived is.
Yes, so And She Thrived is a support platform that my friend Hajra Nuruddin and myself started, and it's aimed at providing support to divorced Muslim women. So we are there to hold space for women. We found during our own divorces that it was actually very difficult to connect to other Muslims who had been along that path. It was very difficult. They online, we searched everywhere. And so we're trying to fill that vacuum, and we really are trying to encourage divorced Muslim women to express themselves in any way or form that they want. It could be through the written word, it could be via poetry, via art, any way whatsoever. And we welcome all kinds of submissions. And we hope to create some kind of online community and also eventually offer support, as in modalities for healing or legal support, all kinds of support that's needed eventually. And yeah, so that's what And She Thrived is about in a nutshell.
Alhamdulillah, for those that are wanting to go online while they're enjoying this interview, Sister Sumaya, what is the details of that platform?
Yes, so the website is www.andshithrived with a D at the end.com, or you could email us at the same name, andshithrived@gmail.com.
Okay, excellent. So we're also joined today by Sister Ayesha Hassim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Ayesha.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to Eat, Pray, Love. We are delighted to have you join us and, of course, share with us this afternoon. We hope that you are well.
I am well, alhamdulillah. Hope you as well, and you, Sumaya.
Alhamdulillah. So, Sister Sumaya, Sister Ayesha has contributed to And She Thrived. And today we're obviously going to open the show taking a listen to that insert. So, Sister Sumaya, you may bismillah.
Yes, so I'm just going to be reading a small excerpt from Aisha's piece that she submitted to our website. I must make mention, though, that whoever does submit, not everybody is as confident or comfortable writing under their own name. So you're welcome to also submit or under a pen name as well. Okay, so here we go. I remember the day my husband left me with surreal clarity. It's been 8 years to the day this week, and that's not a short space of time. I find it hard to remember what I ate for dinner last night, things I did last month, or even holidays I went on in the last 2 years. Yet I can remember a single day that took place 8 years ago like it was yesterday. I guess some moments in life will stay ingrained in our memories forever. These are the moments that define us, that shaped a new path for us, that broke us, that shattered our reality, and even those that brought us the biggest joys in our lives, like the birth of our children or the day we graduated. But the thing that knits these moments together is the fact that it meant we had to shed our old skins and embrace a newer version of ourselves. My ex-husband took the decision to walk away from me and our 1.5-year-old daughter. And let me tell you, it was hard. Divorce is hard. It's one of those things I don't wish on my worst enemy. It's something that can make or break you, for a period at least. It leaves a sadness, a void, a sense of purposelessness that nothing and no one can fill. And when your spouse is the one that made the decision to throw in the towel on the sacred union that is your marriage, it leaves you questioning everything that you have known for however long you were married. You question your so-called love for each other. You question the honesty you had between each other. You question your intimacy, and you can even question the fidelity in the marriage. But the biggest thing you question is your sense of self. and your worthiness to be loved and chosen. You doubt yourself, you doubt everyone in your life, and you can become mistrusting and even jaded.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Sister Ayesha, that's really a deep share, I'd say, on and she thrived. And I think a lot of detail came out of there, as in that it took place 8 years ago and how. But how did you feel at that very moment when facing that this is divorce?
So in the very moment that my ex-husband walked out, I begged, I pleaded, I cried. I was on the floor sobbing for him not to go, because that was the world I built. I did not get married to get divorced. So in that moment, my world fell apart. But at the same time, I had a daughter lying not too far away, playing on a mat. He walked out the door, and the minute he walked out the door, I looked at her and said, okay, there's nothing else I can do now. I have to be a mother. I have to continue being a mother, whether he's left or not. So the devastation was automatically replaced with fight or flight, and I chose fight. I really went into autopilot for the next couple of months while I was sorting out things, because I wasn't living in the same city as my parents or my support structure. I was alone in Johannesburg. And I had to continue. I had to just pick up, continue being a mother, and continue working as well, because there was no other choice. But it was devastation. It was devastation on many, many levels.
Now, there's obviously two things happening here, Sister Ayesha. The one is dealing with the emotion and everything that goes with it. I mean, few months still being in the same city as your spouse, having to deal with the actual divorce, and then also still having to pull it together because you are a mom. Were you able to cope with the emotions you were feeling on your own, or did you have to seek counsel for some help?
So at that point, I mean, obviously my family stepped in. I wasn't too far away, so my mom came up to stay with me while we were sorting out the semantics of the divorce, because I immediately knew I would return home to Cape Town with my child, and my ex-husband knew that as well. So I went into fight or flight mode for that couple of months, and I told my ex-husband that the minute I get to Cape Town, that's when I would like my talaq. I didn't take an official talaq up until I got to Cape Town. So in that period of time, I was busy packing house, sorting out my child. We met Islamic scholars, Maulanas, sheikhs. We met a marriage counselor. We took all the steps to try and rectify, or try at least, but we knew where we were headed. And so I then returned to Cape Town. Immediately when I got to Cape Town, I said, okay, it was just before Ramadan also. I told him, I am ready for you to give me that talaq. And at that moment, I stopped the fight or flight mode. And it was that was the time for me to say, I'm entering Idda now. Now I'm going to have to focus on all those emotions and let them come out. And to be honest, it was probably the most difficult 3 months of my life to date, because I did it properly, the way Allah has asked for us to do it, number one, which I know a lot of people have their different views on that, and I'm, to each his own. But for me, knowing that I've shaken the arsh of Allah, we've made it shake, and that's not an easy thing to do. I wanted to do everything else correctly. And I did. And in that time, there was a flood of emotions. It was a whirlwind. Every day would be different, from guilt to shame to anger to depression to endless tears to tantrums because I was in my parents' home, to fighting with him on the phone. It, it was a never-ending roller coaster. And I had to, at some point, get therapy, get help to deal with what I was going through. And that's exactly what I did. Yeah.
Ayesha, usually when one is faced with trauma like this, they'll tend to dive into work or keep really busy or look for a distraction. But having to face head on what you are feeling, I can only imagine when you are saying that it was tough, that it was genuinely, genuinely hard. Do you find that it becomes easier though in time? Because I doubt that the Ida period is enough even to heal you.
Definitely. I think the Idda period is prescribed for you to start that grieving process, because the end of a marriage is essentially the death and breaking down of something.
Mm-hmm.
So it is grief. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of, like Samaya said in my earlier speech, like what I wrote earlier, there's a flood of emotions. There's this flood of feelings. There's so many questions. So the Idda period starts you on that journey. I knew in my Idda, and thankfully I had parents and sisters and friends that were supportive of getting therapy for the trauma that I'd faced. So going through all of those emotions, I started speaking to someone on the phone already, and I was very lucky in that I found a therapist immediately that I clicked with, because I think that's also really important, to find people that you can talk to, that understand you, that get you, even if they're not of the same religion as you, is very important. And as Samaya also said, this was 8 years ago. I think if I think about my friends now, there's lots of divorced women, but back then I was one of the first that I knew that had gotten divorced. And a lot of shame came with that. So to find other Muslim women that I could speak to about what I was going through, what I was feeling, was extremely hard. And when I did find them, I latched on. And what I found in latching onto them was that they were willing to help you, because like I said, you don't wish divorce upon your worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
You really don't. It's just too tough. It's just not something that you want to go through, especially when there's children involved as well.
Yeah. On that note of children, I know that some may say that your daughter might have been too young, but I don't believe that they are ever too young. And that even as babies, they are perceptive. They know when things are not okay.
I 100% agree with you. But in going through the therapy journey, and I must say, I tackled it head on. So I myself got the help that I needed. I made sure that we spoke to a child psychologist as well, family therapist as well. We went through the mediation process. I mean, we went through a lot to get to where we are today. It's been years, 8 years of struggle to get to a point where we can finally say we can talk to each other nicely and everything's okay, alhamdulillah. But in speaking to the psychologist, what I had gained factually was that a child under the age of 3 usually doesn't remember a family unit being together. So in that way, I mean, my daughter was only 1.5 at the time. So that gave me a level of comfort. And at that age in their life, the mother's also the primary caregiver. And my therapist assured me, because I was getting threats of, we're going to try and take her back to Joburg. You can't live in Cape Town. It happens. If your ugliest side comes out when you're getting divorced. And my therapist also assured me, she said there's no court in the country, that is South Africa, that will give custody of a child to the other parent if they can prove, unless they can prove the mother is completely incapable of looking after the child.
Yeah.
So that gave me a lot of comfort,
Yes.
I mean, and this just doesn't delve into
of the child.
Exactly. But this delves into trauma on so many So there's the trauma of the divorce, the trauma of what you're doing to your child, what you've done to their life, how you've uprooted your life, what you've sacrificed for this marriage, what you've gained in the marriage, what they've gained in the marriage, what they've taken from you, what you've given to them. It just all comes crashing down on you every single day when you wake up for those, I'd say, first year. Every morning it will come crashing down on you, because in speaking to my therapist also, the three biggest stresses in anyone's life is death, divorce, and moving. And at that time, I was dealing with an aunt that had just passed on. I got divorced and I had to move cities. I had to move back to my parents' home. So literally every single thing that can come crashing down on you and be the main stressor in your life was there. And you have no choice but to deal with it when you're a mum, because you've got to face your child every day and make sure that they're okay. And that's the driving force behind us as women, I think. Not to say that if you get divorced and you don't have a child, you're not facing difficulty, because trust me, I know plenty of women that are.
Subhanallah. Ayesha, listening to you, it's heartbreaking, because I do believe that no one really does get married to get divorced. And I think it often happens when divorce does happen, when women actually realize how much they invest in their marriages and how much their lives rotate around that family unit. And so when getting divorced, they then also realize that they haven't identified much of what they like or who they are, because the entire family unit has been who they were. We have about a minute before we go into an ad break, but did you find yourself in a similar situation?
Definitely. Like Sumaya said, I mentioned it being a time to reinvent yourself, and you end up finding yourself. It might take a month, it might take a year, it might take 10 years. But I definitely think you start finding your sense of purpose and individual self-worth, without a doubt.
Subhanallah. Let's take a quick ad break. When we come back, we'll continue with And She Thrived on Eat, Pray, Love. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Eat, Pray, Love on Voice of the Cape 91.3 FM. We are still with And She Thrived, Sumaya Jiva and Sister Ayesha Hassim. And just before the break, Sister Ayesha shared quite a few of the details to her divorce and the journey she has been through over this past 8 years. Now, Sister Sumaya, just in having listened to Ayesha thus far, and having, and of course, being the founder of And She Thrived, I'm sure that you come across many, many journeys, if not similar, but unique in terms of experiencing divorce.
Yes, absolutely. And every time I hear a story, it always affects me. Like, even though I feel that I'm out of the woods, alhamdulillah, just by reading Aisha's excerpt and that part about self-worth at the end, just reading it, it made me emotional, because it brings back that certain time that is that I think every divorced woman, and I mean, I'm sure many men go through the exact same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always and this is the amazing thing and the beautiful thing about life in general, is that when we experience certain aspects of pain or trauma in any sphere of life, it really opens up the heart to becoming more empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that I really appreciate, because I think that before I would just hear about people who are divorced and be, oh, okay, well, shame, that's very sad. Hope Allah makes it easy, and then you move on. But now when a divorced person comes to me, I'm just like, oh my God, like, what can I do for you? Do you need a hug? How can I make it better for you?
Yeah.
It's okay if you want to cry, I'm here. It's okay, just cry, it's fine. So it's like your heart just like opens up, because you know what it's like.
Mm-hmm. Sumaya, just before we go back to Ayesha, though, as traumatic as divorce is there eventually a space of hope and growth?
I think so, absolutely. Absolutely. And I wish that for everyone, you
Mhm.
know, as I said in my interview with you before, Tasleema, that when you are in the midst of it, you think it is impossible. And my one friend said to me on the phone, "Oh, you'll eventually reach a new normal." And I was thinking, what new normal? There's never going to be a new normal. And then you do reach a new normal and you do
Yeah,
get there. But it depends also, the speed of how quickly you attain that is dependent on the kind of support you have and also the personal determination to actually get there. And
yeah,
that's why I think it would be good to be assessed by some kind of professional, because some people are really in such an abyss that they can't help themselves. And those certain people do require some kind of medication because they actually can't help themselves. They're in such a low point.
yeah,
Whereas for me, alhamdulillah, I didn't have to go that route. I
yeah,
spoke to somebody about it. We have a psychiatrist in our community, and she told me the options. And I did think about it, but I thought, no, I'm not going to go that route. And I was able to attain healing through other mediums because I felt strong enough to embark upon that journey. So yeah, it depends on everyone's circumstance, situation. Yeah.
yeah, subhanallah. Sister Aisha, I see you nodding your head through everything that Sister Sumaya is saying. 8 years later, are you finding yourself in a space of hope and glow?
Oh, definitely. I am a brand new person. The person that got divorced to the person I am today, 180 degrees turnaround. Like, there's no way I am the same person that I was on that day. And just to give you a little bit of insight to my trauma, the day my husband left me was also the day he married me.
On
So,
your anniversary.
yes, it was on our anniversary. So many levels of trauma, like every year that day. I now call it my divorce anniversary. But the first year of everything is hard, 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 hard. And now I can joke about it. I have a divorce anniversary. Let's go for waffles.
Mhm.
It's just like Samaya said, you it depends on your willingness to go in to delve into what you're going through, which medium you choose. There's different mediums for everyone. I needed the help of a therapist. I needed to speak to her regularly. I was falling into the black deep abyss because the stages of grief are, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And I needed help with that. I couldn't deal with all of those on my own.
Mhm.
And I was so grateful. I had a family support structure that encouraged me to seek the help I needed, that I had the time to be able to do that, because without that, I would have not delved into all the trauma, all the feelings I was feeling, all the doubt, all the, the questions about my self-worth, about why can't I be loved? Why couldn't my marriage last? Why couldn't a man love me? Up until a couple of years ago, I'm still single, and I asked, why can't a man love me? And might ask that next year, or who knows, maybe next year I'll be happily in another marriage, inshallah, if it is good for me and my daughter. But it also teaches you self-worth. It, like, I know now what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in a relationship, and you've got to go through the process of just everything. You've got to question, you've got to ask all those difficult questions, and then you've got to be able to sit with yourself and hold up the mirror and say, where did I go wrong? Where did he go wrong? It's not one way.
Yeah,
Marriage and a divorce is not one way. As much as, and Sumaya said it, I went through trauma. I'm sure he did as well.
yeah.
So, yeah, your choice, your medium is yours, but you will come out on the other side. But it depends. It really does largely depend on your commitment and your willingness and your desire to come out of the abyss.
Subhanallah. Well, I've just realized that we need to take a break, actually. We're going to come back in a bit. I know that many are tuned in very closely because this is an experience, whether you are married or not married or have been divorced. It is life and it is serious and it is something that we really need to wake up to, that is very real in our community. And these experiences requires us to be supportive and requires us to also be understanding in many, many ways. We're going to go in for an ad break and we'll be back soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we are still with And She Thrived, right here on Voice of the Cape 91.3 FM. We're chatting to Sister Sumaya Jiva, founder of And She Thrived. And our guest today is Sister Ayesha Hassim. And Sister Ayesha, just before the break, you were sharing quite a bit of the experience with us, and that your husband left you on your anniversary. Was there a part of you that was angry at this?
Absolutely. I mean, I had an anniversary card and present and evening planned. You know, can you not hear me? But I mean, I had all of these things planned. I had organized a babysitter for the first time in 1.5 years to have an evening together with him. And one argument sparked off and led to a divorce. It wasn't one argument, though, obviously. It was a build-up of years of whatever we were going through and whatever the reasons for our divorce were. But yes, anger, but the anger wasn't just that day. The anger lasted for a very long time after that.
Mm-hmm.
The anger lasted through negotiations with him on how he's going to support his child. The anger lasted when I was threatened with him saying he's going to take her to Joburg or not let me move back to Cape Town. The anger surfaces up until now when he tries to negotiate his way out of having to look after our daughter when it's his turn, or, you know, just it never goes away. That anger is not going to go away. There will be flare-ups. If you have to continue connecting with that person, there will be flare-ups all the time. It's natural, I think.
Ayesha, in terms of trauma, though, in people really understanding what divorce is, what it is about, as Sister Sumaya in our previous interview said, that you have to really have gone through divorce to understand it. Would you like to share exactly what divorce was for you and the type of trauma it presented?
Divorce was the end of my world as I knew it. And I think for a lot of women in our community, that is the case, because like you said earlier, our whole lives center around our family unit. And the three of us were a family, and it was just the breakdown of my life. Everything I knew was gone. Everything I counted on was gone. My security was gone. My safety was gone. My person was gone. The person I would talk to about my day, or complain about my friends to, or complain about my mom to, you know, he was gone in a split second. And in that split second, he became a different person. And the different person is someone you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you're faced with a stranger, whereas the day before you had a husband. And it leaves you with such an empty void in your heart, so heartbroken that this could happen to you. You can so easily, like I said, I fell into the abyss of depression, and I fell into the abyss of the darkness. I put on weight. I didn't look after myself because I felt no self-worth anymore. It's so hard to explain. That's why, like Sumaya says, until you've been through it, you will never understand how heartbreaking it can be.
Sumaya, are you wanting to add on this, Sumaya?
Oh, I'm just sitting here thinking that, mashallah, I'm just because I know that Aisha is sitting here telling you about how she had a weight issue, but what she didn't tell you is how she became like a super fitness junkie. She is like Pilates expert, so she should tell you about her healing journey at some point. Yeah, but she's right. Yeah,
And she thrived, basically.
definitely
Exactly.
thrived indeed. Yeah, she definitely got her power back. So that's an inspiring story for sure.
Aisha, what was that turning point? What was that turning point for you?
So there were two moments that come to the fore for me. The one was I attended a wedding with my mum, and my whole family was there. And it was a big wedding. There was family from all over the place there. And we were leaving. I had my daughter, my sister had her husband and kids. And as we were leaving, my mom met an old aunt. And she's speaking to this aunt, and this aunt says, "Oh, is this your family?" And my mom's like, "Yes, this is my daughter and her husband, and these are her kids." And then she goes, "And this is my daughter and her daughter." And she faltered and she didn't know what to say. And then I looked at the aunt and I just said, "And I'm divorced, so my husband's not here." And I owned it. In
Yes.
that second, I can't explain to you. I took power, I took control, and I wanted my mom to know that I feel no shame about being divorced.
Mhm.
And I still, to this day, now will never feel shame about being divorced. And I want no woman to ever feel shame about being divorced. There is nothing shameful. A quote I shared with Sumaya is that divorce is something that happened to me. It is not what I am. And that sticks with me. So there was that moment. And then there was another moment where we were going through the mediation process because we had to sort out all these legal papers, and you've got to sign this contract, and you've got a child, so you're bound for life. And we went with the government mediation, which didn't work. It was a complete mess because every session was just him trashing me or telling me how terrible I was as a wife. And every time I came out sobbing. So we decided to go the private route. And in doing that, when you're dealing with someone more professional, it makes a massive difference. And this woman, he's my ex-husband, started the session going into why he divorced me. She's like this and she's like that. And he was just going for it, going for it, going for it. And I turned to him at some point and I said, "You know what? We're not here to discuss the past. We're here to discuss our daughter and the future and how we go forward in dealing with this matter." And I told him I accept full responsibility for what my part was, and you should accept responsibility for what your part was. And he looked at me shocked, like, where did this empowered person come from? And then the therapist herself turned to him and said, "It looks like Aisha has done a lot of the work to come to acceptance of where you are and what the next steps are. And maybe you need to go and do that also so that you can get rid of some of this anger." And in that moment, I also knew that I had done the work, that I knew there was a future past this, that I knew I don't feel the shame, I don't feel the anger, I don't feel that massive sense of loss anymore. I understood why we were not married anymore. And to this day, I understand it. And those are the moments that really stood out for me. Those are the moments when I felt in my power. As Sumaya mentioned, my fitness journeys, I picked up weight. I had to found a trainer for the first time in my life. I've never been sporty. And I can honestly say from the day I started training up until now, can maybe count the days that I haven't exercised.
Wow.
And I've done courses in exercise. I continue to do it throughout lockdown. It's an integral part of my life,
Mhm.
it's part of my turnaround. So
Aisha,
yeah.
Aisha, just having to take us back once again to Johannesburg,
Mm, yeah.
um, getting divorced. As you said earlier on, family was not there. No one was there. Your support structure was not there. Your mom flew down at some point, but obviously there are things that now needs to that perhaps he would usually have seen to that now becomes yours to see to. how did that work for you?
So I put off having my parents and my brother and whoever come up to Joburg for as long as I could, because I was still holding on to the hope that we could fix this, that we can make this work. This doesn't have to be the end, because I knew that the minute my parents came and started helping me pack was the reality that it's over, Ayesha. It's over. There's no fixing. There's no going back. And so I had to become a man. You're right. I had to become mom and dad for my child. And a person that was scared of cockroaches suddenly had to go and kill a cockroach. But I had it happen last week where I had friends here. Cockroach came out of nowhere. I was like, where is it then? Bang, go and kill it. And they're like, oh my God, you're not scared. I was like, you know what? This is what happens when you're a single mom or when you're divorced and you have to do things on your own. I've done things that I never thought I'd be capable of doing. Mm-hmm. I was scared of spiders. I was scared of dogs. I was scared of changing a light bulb. And I had to do all of these things. I had to run the house on my own. I had to find financial freedom and safety and security for my daughter and for myself. There's so many steps, and there's so much feeling and emotion attached to each and every single step. You can't even encapsulate it into like one word. There is no one word that encapsulates everything that you go through.
Ayesha, this is your experience, right? Your journey.
Yes.
And now, of course, your growth. The reality is that there are potentially of our sisters that are tuned in right now that have either gotten divorced, on the brink of divorce, or know that it's a possibility. What would your advice be to them through your own experience now?
Divorce is and needs to be the last resort. I will stand by that 100%. My religion teaches it to me. My experience teaches it to me. So my advice to these women would be, it's got to be your last resort. You need to go through all the steps. We had marriage counseling. We had couples counseling. We had family getting involved when we had fights. We spoke to imams, etc. But all of that made me comfortable enough to know that I did everything I could to save my marriage. So when it did eventually end, now, all these years later, I can say I did everything possible to try and save it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, because you don't ever want to be left with the, I should have, I could have, I didn't, all those questions that can go, what could I have done better? You don't want to go through that. So my advice would be, go through all the proper steps, seek the counseling, seek the help, speak to your Islamic scholars, speak to a therapist if you need to, go for couples counseling. But if it's the end, and if it happens, my advice would be, go to And She Thrived. Find your tribe, find women that you can talk to, find support on multiple levels. If you don't have family, then whoever it is that you can turn to, it's not a journey you can traverse alone. So that support is ultimately what is going to help you get through. But at the same time, make your mind strong, make the decision in your heart that you are going to get through this. And with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will get through this. It won't happen overnight, but you will. It's not the end of the world.
One of the fascinating things I found listening to you this afternoon, Sister Ayesha, was having to go from your anniversary, which turned into your, what do you call it? Divorce
anniversary.
And I would think it takes a lot of strength. It's a huge decision to walk out on somebody that you love But I think it took a lot more strength for you to find yourself in that space, in that lawyer's office, along with the therapist, to say, this is where I need to be right now. And this is why we are here, without reverting to that very first day when it all started, as in a repeat. Because you find a lot of couples do that. It's on a repeat all the time. Every conversation, every instance of being together, it's on a repeat. So it takes a lot of strength to have gotten to where you were on this, and then so much more strength to where you are now.
Exactly. Like I said earlier, I put off having anyone come to Johannesburg as much as possible because I was still in that cycle, in that circle of wanting us to fix it. This was our normal. Our relationship was not linear. Our relationship was highs, very high highs, and very low lows. So I was happy to continue with that. And I'm not going to lie about that. I loved this man. I had a child. This was my forever. This was everything, you know. So I wanted to continue in that 6-cycle carousel. I was happy to do that. But there comes a point, and he walked out the door, he closed the door, and I looked at my child. And I said, if you can walk out on, not me, if you can walk out on your child, then you clearly are no longer invested in this. It must take, I can't imagine my life without her. So for me, it must have taken, I don't know what, for him to do that.
Yeah.
But that's when I knew, you know, okay, this is it. We're going down that path, and that talak is coming, whether I like it or not. And then it was just the emotions and the trauma and everything else that goes with it, and getting your family support, packing up your house, moving to where you need to move to, whatever else you need to do.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Just before we go back to Sister Sumaya and She Thrived, when we started speaking, you spoke about your Ida, and you said that you did it the way you needed to do it. And I felt that you had a strong connection at that point and a strong conversation with Allah as well. Just in terms of your spirituality, what has this experience done for you?
You know, yes, in terms of my spirituality, I sat on my musalla and I cried my heart out. Never have I felt closer to my creator. Never have I had such long conversations with my Allah, and pouring my heart out, pouring my soul out, every single thing I'd ever done wrong, every single thing I'd ever done right, asking Allah, are you punishing me? Because we do that. We question everything about ourselves. Did I do something that you're punishing me? Allah, forgive me. Please, you know, it pushes you. And being in it and doing it, I'm not going to say correctly, there's no right or wrong, everyone's different, but doing it where you don't see other people, where you stay in your home and you don't step out, you're confined to face all your emotions, and you've got to really dig deep and find peace within yourself, and you'll find that connection with Allah. And as Allah says, you know, turn to me and you take one step towards me and I will take 10 steps towards you. And that's what happens in that process. And that's why I think it is prescribed for women specifically, because we are the more emotional beings. We are the ones that get more attached. We are the ones that will cry when we watch a movie, when we see a child getting hurt or anything like that. So yes, your spirituality plays a massive part, I think, in this journey. But everyone's spirituality is different, and anyone, whichever way they choose to do it, that's up to them. That definitely helped me.
Sister Ayesha, I think your visit with us this afternoon is definitely helping someone. You have been so inspiring for all of us. And I really, really sincerely make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you His love and that you will continue to grow the way you have. And you'll share this afternoon. Shukran so much for sharing your journey, because these shares are so empowering for so many of our sisters that are listening and in reality is battling many, many challenges. So shukran to you.
Afwan and Amin.
I mean, Sister Sumaya, and she thrived. I think this afternoon, Sister Aisha has really, really with many people's faces, with her experiences, but also inspired us in a way that, you know what, ultimately, Allah loves us and that they will be better and you will grow from this. And she thrived, basically.
You will learn your value and you will not settle after that.
Absolutely.
Right. And I'm very grateful that, Aisha has been brave to and very courageous to come and share her story. And we welcome everybody else to submit your story to us. And, if you're very shy, that's fine. You don't have to write or speak under your real name. And yes, we would love to hear from you.
So, Sister Sumaya, how may they make contact?
You can either just go to the website, www.andshethrived.com, and contact us via the website, or email us at andshethrived@gmail.com. And we will get back. We'll respond right away.
Inshallah. I need to say shukran to you once again, Sister Aisha, as well as Sister Sumaya. Sister Sumaya, you'll hopefully be back with us once again next week on
Yes,
Eat, Pray, Love. I think we have another sister that will be joining us, Sister Arshia, and we look forward to listening to her journey as well, right here on Eat, Pray, Love. Shukran, sisters. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum
Wa
salam.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.